am here with Jennifer Teske, who is the Vice President of Resource Development for the United Way of Olmsted County. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you.
We are so glad to have you here as part of our Good Neighbor series and are thinking with community leaders and partners around what it means to be a good neighbor here locally in Rochester and in Olmsted County, and ways that we can do that, both as part of our congregation and also in our lives within the community. So Jennifer, in thinking about what it means to be a good neighbor, what does that phrase mean for you? What does the concept of being a good neighbor look like?
For me personally, I thought about my own neighborhood when I was thinking about this and how I might be a good neighbor or how I have. And I think number one is caring for one another and really being welcoming and reaching out to one another to find out more about them.
Right.
I know that I live in a very diverse neighborhood.
Yes.
So there's lots of opportunities for me to learn about others and for others to learn about me as well.
Great.
And we really encourage that in my neighborhood, so
Right.
I'm very proud of that. And then putting our actions into words, or our words into actions, sorry. And just being very genuine about our approach about including everyone in our community.
Absolutely. I really appreciate the intentionality that you're raising of, allowing relationships to flourish by creating them and making space for that. Some vulnerability. I know in our congregation we have folks that live in all parts of Rochester, all four quadrants, if you will, of Rochester. And so the different ways that we might do that practically in our own individual neighborhoods, I think really connects with the ways that we do that in a broader way with our neighbors across the community. So
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. As part of your work with United Way, have you seen examples of people being good neighbors? And have you seen that in practice in ways that would be illustrative for our community to hear about?
Well, there are many ways that we've been able to see people being good neighbors. In totality at United Way, that's what we strive for.
Yes.
We strive for supporting each other, supporting individuals and families that are experiencing barriers in their lives, and helping them become good neighbors as well.
Right.
Right. We've done some studies of and done community conversations to kind of delve into what are some of the barriers that people are experiencing. And isolation is one of the top barriers.
Right.
So that's what I think of being a good neighbor is helping with that, being open to those conversations and learning about each other and supporting each other. Really, that's what we do at United Way. We work across boundaries, working with community organizations, nonprofits, government entities, and for-profit to really come around those people and families that are facing barriers to be that good neighbor.
Right.
And we couldn't do it by ourselves.
Yeah.
We really depend on the collaboration and the thoughts that go beyond just what United Way feels that being a good neighbor would be.
Right.
And we involve people in that discussion. So
Right.
in that way, I that's what I see in our work.
Yeah.
And partnerships like Thrive
Absolutely.
is a great opportunity to talk about what a good neighbor is and what it looks like.
Absolutely. And thinking about, as you're referring to, the ways that we come around an issue or a concept or each other from different perspectives. We bring these different agencies and partnerships, and I really appreciate you naming how United Way is so focused on bringing together and collectively responding to the places where we see isolation or barriers to people having the fulfillment of life that they need. So
yeah, we're really proud of lately here of our work. We always are proud of our work, but we just hosted our second round of 21-day equity challenge.
Oh, yes.
And so I think that really opened up some conversations that sometimes people are not prepared to talk about diversity, equity, inclusion.
Right.
But if they are provided with some resources and some conversation points, we've gotten a really great feedback from that.
That's wonderful. I had heard about the 21-day equity challenge, and I think that's a great example of something that helps maybe to open our eyes to what neighbors can be facing and to understand that? Do you think it would be surprising for some folks in Rochester to learn about what some of their neighbors might be going through?
Yes. The thing that I have learned, worked for multiple nonprofits in the area, and the one thing that I have learned is that our community really hides some of the issues, challenges that people are experiencing. We do a great job of that. We have Mayo Clinic in our backyard. We have IBM in our backyard. I think an outsider's perspective would be, you should be a very thriving community,
right?
Because of just even those two factors. So you often don't see physically what's happening unless you're really ingrained in the work.
Absolutely.
And you're seeking it out.
Absolutely.
So I always, talk about maybe homelessness. Not very often are you going to see someone that is, living under a viaduct here, or
right.
It's not in your face. And homelessness is different in different ways. It's not necessarily what we think it might be.
Absolutely.
It might be couch surfing, it might be unstable environments, housing. It takes on so many forms, and that's what I think of when I think of barriers. It takes on different forms.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you talked about Thrive and thinking about the way that childcare and having affordable quality childcare can be a barrier and can get in the way of people being able to break out of the cycle of poverty or to keep some stability, because that's such an important part of their life.
Yes, and we all know, or we should, that early childhood education and taking care of our young kiddos is really vital to the success in their lives as well as our community.
Absolutely.
And we really need to be thinking about the start and with the family as well. So thinking about holistic family wraparound services
absolutely
is really where our heads at United Way are, is not just an individual but the whole family, the whole situation, and how can we help in those areas.
Great. Are there any other challenges that you have highlighted in your work that you would want people to know about that neighbors here in Rochester are facing?
Boy, I should have all these statistics down in my head, but man, the amount of people that are home burdened, that housing crisis that we are experiencing here, beyond affordable housing, is just keeping people in their house or their home.
Right.
Eviction prevention and rapid rehousing. Unless you have experienced it yourself, so you probably would not understand what that's like.
Right.
Which I've never experienced it myself. But I've done enough research and enough background and worked for the organization that really, that's one of our areas that we focus in on.
Absolutely.
So again, unless you are really ingrained in the work, you might not know what's going on. So, and we were talking about affordable childcare. I use my family as an example in pretty much everything that I talk about. Is when I was sending my child to an affordable quality childcare, early childhood education space, it was another mortgage.
Absolutely.
And I don't think people realize that.
Absolutely.
So if you're looking at weighing out your options of what you're going to do with your monthly income,
right?
Is that going to rise to the occasion,
right?
Or is putting food on the table going to rise to the occasion, or paying your rent or utilities,
right?
So yeah, I think a lot of people just don't have lived experience,
right?
And so they don't quite understand it.
Absolutely, and the interconnectedness of these issues, one with another, how that can impact a family's stability.
Exactly, and if a family is not stable, kiddos are not stable, I mean, it just is a ripple effect. Absolutely.
What do you think makes some of the building blocks of a strong community and of a good community? What are ways that we can help to support that and to put those in place here in our neighborhoods and community?
Well, that leads right into what we are about. The building blocks is what we talk about is health, education, and financial stability. So that's one of the ways that we invest within our community is serving health education and financial stability and finding those partnerships that strengthen that and
Right.
make it possible
Right.
to overcome some of those barriers in each of those areas.
Right.
If you're experiencing a barrier in one, most likely you're experiencing
Absolutely.
barriers in multiple.
Absolutely.
So, that's what I think of building blocks. Also, just being able to tap into resources easily
Right.
without having to re-traumatize someone
Absolutely.
by having to go to multiple organizations
Sure.
for their needs.
Sure.
We have started to do some really innovative programming within Rochester in particular, whether it be community schools, Cradle to Career, Meadow Park Initiative.
Right.
I could go on and on about some of the innovation that we're bringing to the
Right.
table that I can almost guarantee you a small percentage of the population know what we're doing, or
Right.
that we're behind some of those initiatives.
Right. That leads a little bit to my next question. You were referring earlier to sort of individual neighboring and examples of thinking about your own neighborhood. How do we talk with people about the way that individual experiences of good neighboring and interactions and personal relationships can translate to some of these larger initiatives? Do you see a relationship between individual ways that we practice that and live that out and some of the larger communal efforts, either sponsored by organizations or help led by that, or ways that we can see that in a larger way?
I think that we need to be open to being vulnerable. And sharing our experiences with others,
Right.
and being willing to have those conversations with others. It's very easy to just close your door
Right.
and be in your own world.
Right.
And I think it takes some courage to really open yourself up to everyone in your community, not just those that you're comfortable with or that might be of the same experience as you.
Right.
And I think that's what we often do, is we
Right.
gravitate towards people that have the same experiences.
Absolutely.
Because that's our comfort level.
Absolutely.
So I think that just being open to that, and even being courageous enough to do it yourself and encourage your neighbors to also. That's what I've experienced in my own neighborhood. And I'm often the person in the neighborhood that says, we should do a national night out. We should do these, every once in a while, get together and get to know each other. And I'm telling you, our neighborhood is phenomenal.
Right.
And we're experiencing different cultures all the time in my neighborhood, as well as different identities. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a cultural identity, but
Sure.
So I'm really proud of our neighborhood and where we are as a community and where we can be going.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a wonderful example of thinking about the ways that personal relationships can lead to greater understanding. And I do think vulnerability invites vulnerability. And so having the chance to model that and to do that. And maybe even you were referring to the process of someone being able to receive help and services, for there to not feel like it's a system without a face or a heart or a human compassion behind it, but even vulnerability in the ways that we care for people on a systemic way.
Yeah, we just had a really great President's Roundtable yesterday, which is another way that we kind of involve people in our work and engage, is to tell them what we are working on and bringing our partners and together to be able to share that with others that might not know. And we were just talking about housing and 211, which is a resource and referral line that United Way is connected with, and we invest in to provide the most comprehensive resource and referral line here in our area and across the United States. Right. Where someone might be facing a crisis, all they have to do is dial 211, and there's an actual person on the other side of the line that is a trained counselor. Usually someone calls in and they have a presenting need, but there's much more that's going on. And that's the role of the counselor, to say, okay, here's your resource report for this one presenting need. But, how is your food security? How is your child care situation,
Right.
And being able to uncover some other resources and referrals that they were not thinking about.
Right. Absolutely.
And so I think that's a really important part of our community that may be underutilized.
Absolutely.
And so we're trying to do a better job of getting that out there.
That's great.
Even partnering with organizations to hand out the 211 cards.
Sure.
We partner with the police department, and they have those in their pockets.
Great.
And they, it's a really easy tool for them to, if they see someone in crisis in their line of duty, that they can just hand them a 211 card.
A practical
and that has worked out really well.
That's great. That's great. That leads into my final question for you, which is any other specific ways that we can encourage folks in our congregation to be agents of change and to be part of this response and being part of being good neighbors through your work with United Way and any other ways that you might have for us to plug into?
I think just being a great advocate for people that are facing barriers, learning about those and individuals or families and engaging with them. I think you find a lot of commonality.
Yeah.
We might all be, some of us be parents or grandparents or, we just want the best for our family.
Right.
And I think that's a big commonality that
Absolutely.
we don't think about.
Absolutely.
But when it comes down to it, we all have something in common.
Absolutely.
But at United Way, we always say it's important to, or some of their pillars are give, advocate, and volunteer. So, give, of course, that's pretty self-explanatory.
Absolutely.
Advocate, it's just advocating for individuals that are facing barriers and families. And volunteering. And so that another thing that you can do is volunteer your time. Absolutely. And we have many nonprofits in our area that are posting volunteer opportunities on our Get Connected site. So I would really encourage people to look at that site.
Great.
And all you have to do is go to our website and click on the volunteer tab.
Okay.
And you can find hundreds of opportunities to volunteer.
Great. And
even able to pare it down to your interest area or your time allotment.
Right.
And get, let's say I selected kids as my area of interest.
Right.
And I would get updates on when something new gets posted.
Right.
And my information is organized by my interest area. So
wonderful.
Really neat opportunity that, again, underutilized, I think, but we're trying to get the word out there.
Absolutely.
And so 211, and then we have Single Care as well, which is a prescription discount card that we make available to anyone.
Oh, wow.
And typically saves about 75% on prescription drugs, which most people live in a household where at least one person is probably on a prescription drug. Absolutely. And I know my family, all of us are on some kind of prescription drug.
Right.
And it saves a lot.
That's great.
It mainly for underinsured or uninsured individuals and families. But even I've been able to benefit from it because I'm able to search the site to find the least or the cost-effective way to get the medication that I need, because I can search a database that tells me what the pharmacies are offering.
That's great.
At what price points. And so I've been able to save a lot of money just being able to compare.
What a great resource.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Jennifer, it's been wonderful to talk with you, and I'm so grateful for the partnership that we already have through Thrive, but also look forward to the ways that we can continue to encourage our congregation and community to connect with the United Way and the many ways that you are putting into action living as good neighbors here in Rochester and in Olmsted County.
Thank you.
So thank you for your work and for being in conversation with us today. And thanks for tuning in to our Good Neighbors series this season.